Hello everyone, thanks for stopping by and checking out my channel. Now for today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys some tips and tricks when it comes to building in Tears of the Kingdom. Now the whole game basically revolves around building. You're going to be doing it pretty much throughout your entire playthrough. You're going to need building for puzzles, combat, traveling around the environment. You're going to be doing building pretty much constantly. So hopefully after watching this video, you'll leave being a little bit better at building. So in this video, I'm going to assume that you have the auto build ability. The auto build is an ability that you can get really early on in the game. There's like a million YouTube videos out there showing you where to get the auto build ability. So if you don't have auto build, make sure you go and get it for a lot of the tips that are in this video. And then when it comes to some of the builds that I'm going to show you in this video, I'm just going to show you how to build them, and I'm going to tell you the pieces you need, and then it's up to you guys to go out and find all those pieces. So the very first tip I'm going to give you all in today's video is going to save you a lot of resources when it comes to auto building. Now when you auto build in this game, any item that you go to build, if you don't have the resources nearby, it's going to convert your Zonaite shards into the materials needed. So if you're trying to build just a crazy over-the-top contraption, maybe you're trying to build a tank or a flying vehicle or a mech suit or whatever, some of the creations can definitely get pretty expensive. So for example, I'm trying to build a mech suit here, and it's going to cost me 63 Zonaite shards to do so. Now that is extremely expensive, and it's going to take a long time to grind up all those materials to be able to afford this. So when you're building something and you want to use the auto build feature, make sure you drop any of the resources you have in your inventory onto the ground first before you try to auto build. So if I'm trying to build a mech suit and it cost me 63 Zonaite shards, well, if I go into my inventory and I drop a lot of the resources that I need, it's going to make it a lot cheaper. So to build that mech suit, for example, I need some construct heads, I need a couple stakes, I need a stabilizer, I need a steering stick, and then I need a couple of beam emitters. Then I can make it even cheaper because it needs some big wheels. So if I drop some big wheels, it will make it even cheaper. And then it's only going to cost me 27 Zonaite shards instead of like 60 something. And then it will just fill in the gap with your Zonaite shards, and then you can build yourself a mech suit or literally whatever it is you're trying to build. That way you don't burn through all of your Zonaite shards when you want to build something. So the next tip is probably one of the most important tips that I can give you when it comes to building, and it's that you can save any item in your auto build history or your favorites by sticking any two items together. So a quick example of this is I was trying to build myself a giant robot, but it was a really complicated design and I needed a lot of metal pieces, and obviously you can't carry metal pieces around in your inventory. So what I did is I went and found myself some metal containers and then just stuck any item I could find to it, and then it would show up in my auto build history. So say you stumble across a metal container or some metal support beams, or maybe you want to save yourself a minecart, just stick something very simple to it like an apple or a piece of wood or just something small, and then when you need it for future builds, it will show up in your history tab. So when I was trying to build my giant robot, I could just pull out some metal whenever I needed it. So the next tip is a really quick one, but be sure to take advantage of these stake Zonaite devices. I learned this the hard way because I was trying to build some just absolutely insane contraptions, and sometimes it's really hard to get the pieces to connect properly. So if you stick stakes in the ground and then you stick whatever object you're working on onto the stake, it will hold the object completely still for you and up in the air, and you can attach different objects to it a lot easier. Then when you're done, just simply break away the stake and you just saved yourself a ton of headache. So next up, the auto build feature doesn't have to be exclusively for vehicles. The auto build feature is extremely useful for combat and for solving puzzles. So first up, let's go over some examples of combat tips. For example, you can use the auto build feature to make different traps to assist you in combat. And one of my favorite traps that you can make is very simple to do, and all you need is a giant tire and some sort of beam emitter or cannon or any kind of sentry turret, and then just place the big wheel on its side and put the cannon or turret on top of it. Activate the tire, then it will constantly spin around doing damage to anything that goes near it. So this is an example of a really quick, cheap trap that you can make. Another very good variation of a trap that you can use in combat is to take a spike, put it into the ground, and then just put a sentry head on top, and then put a turret on top of the sentry head. And what makes this trap so good is once a spike is put into the ground, it's not going to budge no matter what. So when compared to other contraptions that you might build, such as a vehicle or a mini robot, or even the tire trap, a lot of the contraptions that you build can actually be damaged by the enemies. So if you put a cannon or a beam on a sentry head, and then you put the sentry head on a spike, it's going to make it a lot harder for the enemies to destroy it because these spikes are indestructible. So the spike trap is really simple to make, and it's a really sturdy and good option to have. And then another building tip when it comes to combat is that you don't even have to build some crazy over-the-top contraption. Maybe you're just not that good at building, maybe you don't enjoy building, well, you can still use the turrets. I've not seen anyone really talk about this. It's just so simple, but if you have a cannon or a laser beam or a flame emitter, just lay it on the ground, activate the cannon, and then pick it up with your Ultra Hand, and then you can just carry it around and use it as a weapon. This is extremely cheap to do. It's only going to cost you one item, and you have a lot more control over what target you want to focus on. So instead of building a crazy over-the-top trap, just drop the weapon of your choice onto the ground, activate it, and then pick it up and use it as you see fit. Another combat tip is if you come across some explosive barrels, you can actually stick them together and then they will be saved in your history tab. Then you can just pull these out whenever you need them, and it's a really quick and easy way to take out a lot of enemies. But another good thing that I like to use the auto build feature on is for puzzles that you come across in the environment. So one thing I like to do is build myself some bridges or some ladders. If there's some high to reach places, I like to keep some towers in my inventory. I just took a stake and some random logs that you find at any of the building locations. Just stick some wood together, stick it to the stake, and then make yourself some little platforms, and then you will have yourself an ascension ladder. Just place it down wherever you need it and ascend your way clear to the top, giving you a massive height advantage that you previously didn't have. The same can be done for portable bridges. Just attach a bunch of pieces of wood together and then save it in your favorites, and then you can always pull out a portable bridge whenever needed. Another thing I like to do is build myself a portable combat tower. It's an extremely simple idea, but I just made myself a little tower. That way, if there's a bunch of enemies running at me and they all have melee weapons, I can just throw down this tower, ascend through the top of it, and then suddenly I will have a height advantage over my enemies. But if you're going to build a tower like this and it's going to be used in combat, you want to make sure it's made out of some pretty sturdy material, so I made mine out of metal. You can also make it out of stone, because if you make a tower out of wood, it's just going to very easily break. The enemies can damage wood fairly easily. Things like fire can also damage wood pretty easily, so if you make it out of metal or stone, the enemies aren't going to be able to destroy it. So a good location to find metal is a little bit northeast up at Goron City. This is where you find all the Octo Rocks and Death Mountain. There's a bunch of mining carts and just mining locations all throughout this area, so there's a lot of metal resources. So just go up to this location, find any of the little building areas, just steal yourself all of the metal resources, and you can make yourself a portable indestructible tower. So next up, I want to show you guys some different examples of some vehicles you can build to help you on your playthrough. So first up, I'm going to show you guys some really good and really simple air vehicles, then we'll go over some ground vehicles, and then lastly, I will show you guys the location of a pre-made car structure in case you wanted to build yourself some sort of car or a tank. So the first vehicle I want to show you guys is extremely simple. It's very cheap to make, and it only takes 3 items. You're going to need 2 fans and a steering stick, because we're going to be making a little green goblin glider. Just take the steering stick and place it face up, and then take 2 fans and put it on either side, and now you have yourself a very cheap and quick to make little glider. Now the downside to the Green Goblin glider is that it's a little hard to handle. You don't really have much control when it comes to going up or down. You're just kind of constantly going up. So to make a better glider, you just need a control stick and 2 fans. So to make this version of the glider, take both of the fans, turn them upside down, then take the control stick and put it at an angle slightly backwards and attach it to one of the fans. Then take the second fan, hover it in the air, and attach it to the front of the control stick, but it's very important that the control stick is angled. The back fan needs to be a little bit lower and the front fan needs to be a little bit higher. And this version of the glider, in my opinion, is just way better. It gives you a lot more control and stability. Just pull back on the stick if you want to go up and push down on the stick if you want to go down. So this version of the hover bike is a little bit harder to make, but trust me, it's a lot better and you're definitely going to want to save this in your favorites. So for the next tip, I want to show you guys a couple of really good ground vehicles that you can make. For the first example, you're going to need 1 sled, 1 steering stick, and then 2 fans. Put all this together and suddenly you have yourself a hovercraft. Now what's so cool about this quick build is 1, it's really cheap to make, 2, it works on land, and then 3, it also works in the water. Now it doesn't work the greatest in the water. I mean, half of you is going to be submerged underwater, but it does work on both the land and the sea, so if you need to get across a lake or something, this is a good option to have. Although with this version of the hovercraft, I would avoid sticking anything that weighs a lot on it because it is going to make you sink if you put it in the water. So next up is a 2-wheeler that you can make. It's very simple. All you need is a steering stick and 2 small wheels. Just take 2 small wheels and stick them on either side of the steering stick, and suddenly you have yourself a little 2-wheeled motorbike. And then what I like to do is take 2 construct heads and stick them on either side, and then put some beam emitters on the top. But if you don't like that version of the 2-wheeler, you can make yourself a motorcycle. All you need is 2 wheels, 1 control stick, and 1 stabilizer. Take the control stick and put 2 small wheels underneath of it on both the front and back sides of the steering stick. Then take the stabilizer and stick it on the back of the motorcycle, and then the stabilizer is what keeps you upright when you're driving. The downside to having a motorcycle though is that it is going to keep falling over, so to prevent this, just stick 2 pieces of wood on either side of the motorcycle, and then you can easily get on and off of it without it falling over. And then of course you can always stick a cannon or something onto the front of the motorcycle as well. And then another cool feature in this game when it comes to the auto building is that you can actually find a number of different schematics underground in the depths. So when you're underground in the depths exploring, you're going to encounter a number of these Yiga clan hideouts. And at each of these hideouts, once you defeat the enemy with the little red circle above them, it's going to unlock some doors, and inside you will find some schematics or a new vehicle. So a really cool one I found that goes along great with your horse is the schematics for this little wooden wagon. Now this can be found over on the east side of the map. If you go clear over to the east side and you go to the Yuri Mountain Skyview Tower, just head straight into the nearest giant hole into the ground, and as soon as you drop down the hole, if you go a little bit to the west, you're going to find a light route, and a little bit west of the light route, you're going to find a Yiga clan hideout. Clear the hideout, and this will give you the blueprints for the wagon. And then of course you can always weaponize the wagon by putting some construct heads on the wagon with some beam emitters or some cannons, and then just steer your horse around whatever enemies that you're trying to kill and let the laser beams do all the work for you. So to close out the video, I want to show you guys the location of a pre-made car that you can get. So if we go to the map and we head north, make your way up to the Typhlo Ruins Skyview Tower, and at this tower there's going to be a giant hole in the ground. Jump into this giant hole in the ground, and when you're underground there's going to be a Yiga camp, and it's extremely easy to find. You don't have to have any of the underground lanterns lit. It's literally as soon as you go underground you're going to see this camp. Head to the Yiga camp and clear it, and down here you will find a pre-made car structure that one of the Yiga members is driving. Now I highly recommend that you stick something to this vehicle, that way it shows up in your history menu and you can pull it out later, because this is actually a pretty solid vehicle to have, and you don't have to be creative or do anything crazy over the top to build it. Now this is actually a really good vehicle to get because it's entirely made of metal, so enemies aren't going to be able to break it. But do keep in mind, since it's made of metal, it will conduct electricity, so just be careful if you're going to be driving this thing around in thunderstorms. And then another cool thing about this location is if you go around the back side of the Yiga camp, you will find the base version of the car with just the car's body and a bunch of materials that you can experiment with to build your own car. So I just stuck something simple to the metal body and then saved it into my inventory. That way I could take the base body of this metal vehicle and then pull it out later and build my own version of a tank. So I highly recommend, if you want to build some sort of tank or some sort of car, that you go and you pick up this metal body. It is a really good base material for vehicles. And with that, that is going to do it for all the tips and tricks I have for you guys in today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, then please give this video a thumbs up. It's greatly appreciated. If this video gets a lot of traction, then I'll make another follow-up video showcasing how to build more intricate vehicles, such as the battle robot and the mech suit. So stay tuned for that. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications. And that is going to do it for me, everyone. And I will talk to you all in the next video.